Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. So there's another group of Chinese hackers that have infiltrated some US ISPs. I will be right back with that story. Hey there, Rick Uzzi with Broadband Deployment News. So I reported on something similar just not long ago, I think it was last week, about a Chinese group that had infiltrated some ISPs that had a very similar name. And this is basically, this is like a state actor that's doing this. We hear about Russian hackers and hackers from other countries, hackers in this country, and quite often it's for their own purposes. But a lot of times when you see this coming from China, it's basically like the Chinese government that's doing this. It's something that all internet service providers need to be concerned about because being critical infrastructure providers, you are a big target because you are serving other critical infrastructure providers. Plus, the fact that all of the traffic from those providers and other businesses throughout the United States go through internet service providers. So you guys are critical in this. Let me remind you that you can go to our website, and I put a link to this as well as this article that we're looking at we're going to be looking at in the description of this video. But a lot of times ISPs don't have the ability to do a lot of this on their own, especially small to mid-sized internet service providers. So we can provide cybersecurity as a service, security operations center as a service, managed EDR, email filtering, web filtering, all kinds of other services. So just go to our website and look under products for cybersecurity, or go to zcorm.com/cybersecurity. You can learn about that. But let's get into this article and see what's going on here. So you see China's Salt Typhoon cyber spies are deep inside US ISPs, expecting a longer storm season this year. So the word typhoon was in the last one that I reported about. I think it was last week. So you see here another Beijing-linked cyber spy crew. This one, dubbed Salt Typhoon, has reportedly been spotted on networks belonging to US internet service providers in stealthy data stealing missions and potential preparation for future cyber attacks. So multiple reasons they would be in the networks. One would be to get data from people, maybe, again, stealing communications, credentials, and future cyber attacks to maybe bring down networks. Wall Street Journal on Wednesday reported this, a report on the breaches. I don't have an account to Wall Street Journal, so I'm looking at the register right here. So again, I linked to this article. They're citing people familiar with the matter in the Wall Street Journal. The newspaper didn't name the compromised ISPs, but said a handful had been broken into by this new Chinese group that investigators are calling Salt Typhoon. And I'm assuming that handful means those are the ones that we know about. So you don't always know about them. While the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, that would be CISA or CISA, I think they call it, did not immediately respond to the register's inquiries about Salt Typhoon and the alleged ISP break-ins. The news follows a series of similar network intrusions that the feds and private researchers have tied to Chinese government snoops. And actually, at the end of this article, they've updated to say that CISA did weigh in on this. So we'll see that. A week ago, FBI Director Christopher Wray revealed his agency and international law enforcement disrupted a 260,000 device botnet controlled by a different Beijing-linked goon squad, Flax Typhoon. So a lot of them have Typhoon in the name. This group had been building the Mirai-based botnet since 2021, and most recently targeting U.S. critical infrastructure, government, academics, according to Wray. So a little different here, where they've got a botnet, and they'd be using that, for example, for a distributed denial of service attack to bring the network down from that perspective, to make it where they kind of flood the network with traffic, and therefore you can't get to the website. They can't operate their business due to the DDoS attack. But we're also talking here, I think, with the Salt Typhoon and the Volt Typhoon previously that I reported about, where they're actually infiltrated into the network. So it's not so much a botnet, but you've got people that have broken in basically into the network of those ISPs and are in there. The ISP may not even realize it, but they're in there maybe collecting data, and normally, again, if this were a private venture, so to speak, and not a government based attack, they might then might be, for example, ransomware, where they would lock the network down for the purpose of collecting ransom. But in this case, it could be that they're just waiting for some reason to lock this infrastructure down. In the case of conflict, for example, overseas, those kinds of things where the Chinese government could come in and do that. So typhoon season hits, and related security advisory government agencies accused the Flax Typhoon crew of amassing a SQL database containing details of 1.2 million records on compromised and hijacked devices that they had either previously used or were currently using for the botnet. So one of the things that, as you compromise different computers, then you can also use these computers as the botnet to then attack others. So it doesn't take much. That's the way a DDoS works, distributed denial of service attack. It doesn't take much for just small amounts of packets like UDP traffic, packets that normally don't cause a problem. But if you have, 500,000 devices or even far less than that, you can cripple a network because then you're able to amplify that by having that same traffic come from all these bots around the world. As recently as August, another typhoon gang, Volt Typhoon, this is one I reported recently, was accused of hiding in American networks after exploiting a high-severity bug in Versus SD-WAN software. And that was kind of the vector for that. That's why it's so important to have supply chain mitigation in place where you're sure that those that are supplying your services, and that would be really kind of network services, that they have got their cybersecurity in place, because if they are providing software to you or they're connecting your network in some way, then you can be attacked if they are attacked. So that was through Versus SD-WAN software. They did patch that, but could be unpatched folks out there that are still compromised and impacted by that. Back in February, the U.S. government confirmed that the same Chinese crew compromised multiple U.S. critical infrastructure organizations' IT networks in America in preparation for disruptive or destructive cyber attacks against those targets. Also last week, Binary Defense revealed details of how it uncovered Chinese state-sponsored spies inside a global engineering firm's network, where they've been snooping around for 4 months, So again, different reasons for these attacks or these invasions into the network, so to speak. And that, sometimes it is something where they just want to be kind of hiding there until they can leverage that for the most impact. And again, an example would be if there's some kind of international incident, if, an attack on, like say China, Taiwan kind of thing, where they suddenly want to impact our response in a situation like that. That's something that they could be waiting for there. So they don't necessarily want to do anything right now. They want to get in as many systems as they can and then be able to activate what they've done at the time that they want to do that. The InfoSec Shop's Director of Security Research, John Dwyer, spoke exclusively to the Register about the intrusion, which he said has been attributed to an unnamed People's Republic of China team whose motivation appeared to be espionage and blueprint theft. Can't really comment on the connection between the incidents, but I can say that given the uptick in Chinese-linked attacks against critical infrastructure supply chains, ISPs, and core internet devices, there is a clear strategy at play where attackers are aiming to identify and exploit logical choke points in our society to take control of the flow of information and supplies, he told the Register today when asked about a possible Salt Typhoon connection. Another interesting thing would be the elections coming up in the United States and, what could be done to interrupt that. So that could be another potential time when there's a reason to attack us. Terry Dunlop, a former U.S. National Security Agency offensive analyst, told the Register that while he doesn't have direct knowledge of the most recent cyber intrusion, it makes sense for U.S. adversaries to target ISPs due to the large volume and variety of communications moving in and out of ISPs. And again, that's why it's so important for ISPs to be protected, is because, again, you are providing critical services to residential and business customers in the country. And just the fact that if your network goes down, that is an impact to those businesses and residential users. And some of those businesses are critical infrastructure businesses. Plus, again, the fact here that all of that data, if somebody can be snooping on that data as it passes through your infrastructure, that's not good either. Supply chain infiltration by our adversaries has been a problem since 2010, specifically with Chinese security cameras and other embedded IoT devices, said Dunlap. He's chief security strategist at IoT security company NetRise. And he noted it should have been spotted earlier Why did it take so long for people to discover this? I've known this type of behavior has been happening for years. Why is it? Why is the U.S. just now waking up to this long-established trend in adversarial TTPs? And that would mean tactics, techniques, and procedures. So that if you tactics, techniques, and procedures would be kind of the way that these attacks happen. You've got your larger tactics, and then the techniques are used to exploit things, and the procedures. That's fairly typical language in that cybersecurity world. The Salt Typhoon report is another example of our adversaries embedding themselves deep within the U.S. infrastructure, Dunlop said. I believe this is another component of China's 100-year strategy. So a couple of things there that he's talking about. So again, why did it take so long for people to discover this? Well, that's kind of the way these things work. And that's whether it's a state actor or whether it's just somebody in there that's trying to get as much data as they can before they launch it. So companies, ISPs, companies, whoever, could have somebody in their networks for months that are in there collecting as much as they can before they ever trigger this thing. Or again, with a state actor, they could be in there just waiting for some reason, wanting to pick the best time to be able to launch whatever attack they're going to do. So you may not know, and that's, again, something that you could take steps there by, again, contact us if you want to do a penetration test, for example, to see where your vulnerabilities are. Or, again, you can have us go in there and discover and look and see if there's anybody that's been in there, those kinds of things. So you may not know it unless you have the tools and the expert personnel to do that. And most companies can't afford to do that on their own. Larger ones can, but we can certainly help there just through economies of scale and being able to do this for you as a service, as opposed to you have to build all that yourself. One of the key things is having people 24/7 available to be able to monitor what's going on. So, China's on a different time zone. And even if they weren't, attackers tend to attack at the times when people are not watching. One of the things that they'll do is they will use something like a DDoS attack as a diversion. So they'll launch a DDoS attack and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and you realize, oh, it's a DDoS attack. And then you're trying to mitigate that attack. And while you're doing that, they're looking for a backdoor to get into your system to be able to get access to it and to be able to hack into it. So not just flooding you with traffic to bring your network down, but then as you take your eye off the ball, they're in there trying to get access to your network. So these are the kind of strategy they use. Then he mentions this 100-year strategy. This is kind of the way China and a lot of countries, certain countries around the world, think. Is they are looking ahead 100 years or so. They're playing the long game, and we here in the United States quite often play the short game, and businesses quite often play the short game. Everybody is thinking about this month and this quarter, and not 100 years out. So that is what he's talking about there, is their 100-year strategy of getting deep within our infrastructure, and again, being very patient and figuring out when they can make the best use of that. And again, here you see updated to add this information here that CISA Executive Assistant Director for Cybersecurity, Jeff Green, told us the agency is aware of the report of the compromised ISPs and said that China is known to be infiltrating all manner of critical targets. So they're aware of that. And as we've seen, so are others. CISA and our partners continue to emphasize the risk posed by PRC, People's Republic of China, state-sponsored cyber actors who've compromised the IT environments across multiple critical infrastructure sectors and organizations. He said in a statement, "We encourage all organizations to review our latest advisories and guidance to include our joint cybersecurity advisory on identifying and mitigating living off the land techniques and take action as appropriate." So that's something that you might want to look into. I'll go ahead and I didn't think about it, but I'll post a link to their website when I'm done here so that you can take a look at that as well. So again, go to our website to learn more about how we can help. And there's a link in the description of the video right there, but we can certainly help with this, even if it's just a matter of talking with you and letting you know how we can help and giving you some advice. Feel free to reach out and contact us about that. So thanks for joining me today. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, if you give me a like on the video, I'd appreciate that. If you're not subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button, ring the bell to make sure that you're notified when I'm live, and I will see you next time for Broadband Deployment News. Take care. Bye-bye.